Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take this information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope you guys all got out there and enjoyed your holiday weekend as much as you guys could. I know some, obviously it's in trucking, so people are working throughout the holiday weekend. There's a bunch of stuff that happens out there. And yeah, you guys, we just need to just jump back into it here and don't hold back on reaching out to prospects and everything today. I know everybody's groggy today because they, probably had an extended weekend outside of the 3 days and everything else, and they want to just put their feet up and wait. But again, you guys got to jump right back in and make things happen out there. But we got it's just going to be a solo show today. I try and space my guests out as much as possible, especially coming after a holiday weekend. I didn't, things happen. People can get kind of backed up on some things. And I just didn't want to have anybody have something come up last minute. So we're going to do a solo show today. I do have guests coming on tomorrow. We're going to be talking with my friend Mia over at S-Works, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of nearshoring. And then on Thursday, I have a longtime listener of the show. He's coming on as well. And then on Friday, we're going to have one of my friends in the tech space come on the show who's got a different offering than what I'm normally talking with. So yeah, we got some guests on there, and then we got some guests popping up next week. Again, you guys, we're going to continue to deliver those daily topics and everything for people to, again, apply everything. And I think, the premise of today's show, it's, and I put a post out there about this, and it looks like it's not getting any traction out there because of certain social media website doesn't like to post my stuff out there as much as they some things. But anyways, this last month, the month of August was I'm going to be honest, it was exciting, but it was challenging at the exact same time. And I want to dive into what kind of happened, not kind of what happened, but what actually happened out there, and how, fortunately, unfortunately, there's a lot of value in some of these tough situations that you encounter in your career and how they kind of all pop up. But, everything that went on the East Coast. So one of my customers that we move a lot of volume with, they import a lot of stuff, and that's the only real drayage work that we do for our customer. And we got awarded a big project for them, which was phenomenal. And again, I want to start this off by practicing what I preach. You guys hear me talk about utilizing core carriers all the time, and how it's just so much more efficient to do that. And I need to add a new notch on that list of why we want to use the same trucking companies time and time again based on the lanes that they run. And, I do that because, in the past, I just found that from a reliability standpoint and from a consistency standpoint, it's a lot easier to find the same trucking company who does these lanes time and time again out there, especially when you're building your book of business up, because not everybody has teams of people, right? Not everybody has a carrier sales team. There's a lot of people out there who are wearing multiple hats, and it's the best way to build and scale a carrier team and really your brokerage as you're getting up and running. You're going to need to be able to utilize and free up as much time as possible. And, shameless plug to Broker Carrier, you guys, load announcements tool. We make this really seamless for you. But back into it. You know, I've been in a lot of situations in this industry. You know, I've personally been a broker for like 14, 15 years. I'll just round up to 15. I've personally worked in trucking since I was 20 years old. So 18 years now. And I've been around the industry literally my entire life. I come from a family of truck drivers. And so, you know, I've seen some shit, right? I've seen some situations that have happened out there where, you know, whether it's, you know, MIA, loads getting double, you know, partialed, and, you know, trucks breaking down and missing critical deliveries, and, you know, I drivers getting arrested, and, you know, a bunch of stuff. I could go on for days and days and days about that, but I don't, you know, but needless to say that this kind of didn't fully prepare me for what we went through, but it gave me a very good starting point on how to handle it. So for context, we were awarded, you know, like 60 some loads out here. And fortunately, I would say about 80% of those moves were accounted for by two of our core carriers that we work with. And you know, we do that, you know, again, because it's just me and my business partner. We're the ones who are out here building this up and making this happen. And we do it, you know, it's a lot easier to manage it that way and everything else. And then we've also found a group of solid secondary carriers. We you know, we call them that. It's not that they're bad carriers or anything like that, but you know, our top priority carrier, our friend out there, and I'm not going to mention their company name yet because I didn't get their clearance to do so, but I will scream their name from the mountaintop for you guys on who to work with. But anyways, you know, we have our primary carriers, we have our secondary carriers, and then we have our, I don't know how tradition or whatever you guys pronounce it, the third carriers out there. And a lot of that is based on kind of how long we've been working with the carrier. That's how we rank them on who gets kind of first dibs on our freight. So we have 3 different classifications of carriers that we work with. And out of all of these 60 some moves, we only used, I think, 4 trucking companies to do all of these at the end of the day. But to get us to what happened, so we all know there was that big tropical storm that hit the East Coast out there, and that caused some delays. And, you know, so long story short, we had the bulk of our containers all getting offloaded within a couple of days of each other. And, you know, our receiver, we were fully prepared for it. We had everything going. And you know, unfortunately, there was some you know, some issues at the receiver where they weren't able to live offload every container like we had intended. And you know, for those of you out there who don't move any drayage or aren't familiar with it, you have free days at the port where you got to pull all these containers out of there before you get assessed fines for that. And then you also have detention days where you have, you know, it depends. Some of them are like, you know, you might have like 10 days, 12 days, whatever it is, but you have a certain amount of time to get the containers removed from the port, offloaded, and returned to the port, which is considered in the free time before any additional fees from the port happen. But that doesn't include container like chassis fees, drop, pre-pull, a bunch of stuff that carriers assess in those situations. But, you know, so again, we had the bulk of these that all needed to get pulled within a certain amount of time. And then we were told that, hey, we can't live offload these containers. What are we going to do? So me being in the situation that, you know, where I've been in this situation before to a point, not to where like they can't offload all the containers like or the trailers that we've had, but I've had, you know, labor issues in the past, and, you know, we've worked through them. And my first thought, you know, was all right, how do we handle this? First and foremost, how do we keep our customer happy here? Because like, these are just shitty situations, right? And this is where the real partnerships come about, right? Like, it's easy to sit here and talk about partnerships when everything's going right, you know, but it's like, it's really crucial to execute upon these partnerships when the shit hits the fan, because that's where you really earn your keep as a service provider, as a broker. And, you know, again, like me and my man Chris Brewer talk about a lot, like, this shit's not a game to me, you know? So it's like, all right, I initially go into like problem solving mode. I don't sit back and think like shoulda, woulda, coulda. I used to, right? But like, I've been through some of these scenarios before. So I instantly came up with, you know, 2 solutions that were out there. The first one, again, I would recommend everybody does this: get in contact with Matt Fain, pop capacity. All right. The guy is an absolute G. His team is absolutely phenomenal. No, I'm not associated with him, but the guy's bailed me out a lot here over these last couple of months for this. But so again, back to our solution. My first thought is all right, since we're dealing with all of these, the free days, the time at the port, let's find a transloading facility. Let's offload all the containers there. Let's have it all palletized, and then let's just truck it up on 53-foot dry vans and then have it all offloaded, right? Like, this is going to be a very expensive option, but nonetheless, it's an option for our customer to decide upon in the moment. And so we presented that, and then they were like, all right, let's think about it. And then then we came up with one, which we had done this earlier with them, but they were like, what about drop trailers? And I'm like, all right, so with this being what it was, where we had, 4 service providers that were out there, but like I said, the bulk of them, our primary carriers, had like 75-80% of the containers accounted for. So we went to them first, and then we asked them about that, and they're like, yes, they are, but this is what it's going to look like and everything. So long story short, we created a drop trailer pool at our receiver here, where we were able to pre-pull containers, bring them to our carrier's yard, and then we were able to kind of round trip them, essentially, where we got them up to where our carriers were bringing loaded containers in, but the receiver had a couple of empties, so we were round tripping them that way, so we could filter through all of these containers to get this all done in a certain amount of time. Because again, you guys, when it deals with the ports, time is everything, and you only have a certain amount of time. And we filtered in a couple of live offloads with, like I said, we had 4 carriers. Well, the other 2 carriers had significantly less volume out there. So we worked with our receiver to have them go in and do a live offload on those. And then our 2 primary carriers, who were able to do drop trailers for us because they had the bulk of them, we were able to navigate through a lot of this. We did, like, it's all done. It's finalized and everything. We took care of it. And I didn't want to talk about it during the middle of it, because again, there's a lot of moving parts, and I wanted to get everything done before I came out and spoke about this strategy for others to be able to use out there. Because you only see the highlight reel on social media, right? You only see about the record days and the good times and everything else, and how, the Inc. 5000 list, but nobody ever really talks about the nitty gritty of what it takes to execute in this industry. And that's something that I'm really trying to deliver on this podcast is, again, everything that I talk about on here, you guys, these are things that we're actually applying, or I have actually applied inside of my career out there. So, we were able to get all of this done in a timely manner. We got the drop trailer pool done. We tried our absolute best to keep all the accessorials as minimal as possible to it. But the number one thing that kept us all going through all of this was communication. All right. And I see it a lot where there's, shitty situations are going to happen, you guys. But before we decided on what we were going to do, I was talking to my customer on the phone, and I told them, I'm like, hey, the only way this doesn't work is if we stop talking. All right. We will talk as long as our open line of communication is going out there between you and me, i.e. our customer and me, and then us and our carrier. I'm like, as long as that open line of communication is there, we will get through this. We will get this solved, and then we will go about our business. And that's exactly what we did. Our communication, I will say this, out of all of this, our communication was about as flawless as you possibly could be in this scenario. And this is why, ultimately, you guys, I tell you about the importance of working with core carriers. All right. Because of that, we were like, to be honest with you, out of all of these moves, if we would have used 15 or 20 different providers on this, we would have been fucked. We would have been fucked. It would have been a major headache. It would have been a major nightmare. I'm not saying we couldn't have got it done. We probably could have. But at the end of the day, I truly don't think we could have pulled it off at the level that we were able to ultimately. And that was because we used 2 trucking companies for the overwhelming majority of these containers in this situation, you guys. And, again, like this is the real side of freight, right? Like I say that before every single show. This is the real side of freight. It's not find a customer, quote them, post the load out, and then find a truck and you make $1 million. That's fucking fantasy land, you guys. This is actual situations that I hope you guys don't encounter them, but you're going to encounter a situation where you're going to have to think critically in the moment about how to pull off the best solution, because you guys, at the end of the day, customers hire us because they're not transportation companies. All right. They're manufacturers. All right. They're warehouses. They're not fucking trucking companies. They're not transportation professionals. That's why they work with brokers, carriers, and everything alike to handle all of this stuff. And this is where the real separators are from. And it was a very good experience. All right. I view situations now a lot differently. Like when I was younger in freight, I was your prototypical hothead. All right. I would have been motherfucking everybody under the sun. In that moment, I would have lost my cool, and I wouldn't have been able to do it at the level that I did do it. And that was because I've been through some situations in the past, right, where I had to think critically. I had to think on my feet, but most importantly, I had to come up with a solution, because that's what people need in these situations. They need a solution. You need to make a decision, and then you need to execute upon that. And it's a lot of long days and long night, or early mornings and long nights. How, you guys know what I mean? But you can get through it. But again, you really got to approach this stuff day by day. And, my first thought when this all came in was all right, we got to minimize or eliminate some of the variables here. All right. That's why I chose to go, let's live offload our secondary carriers, because they had the lower volume. Let's live offload them when their containers are there, so we can just remove another point of contact from the situation. And then we can just keep it down to the 4 core companies that were involved. And that's our customer, us, and our 2 carriers. And we were able to rock through all of that out there. And, again, it was a lot. It was a big learning experience out there, because again, it's not perfect world. Perfect world is everybody just shows up on time, delivers on time. Nothing ever happens. But the reality is there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens out there, and you have to have a plan. All right. So, with that being said, when you're going into a bulk project with a customer as a broker, you need to utilize a core carrier base in those situations. All right. Especially when we're talking about a decent amount of volume that's out there. You need to work with as few carriers as possible to handle the majority of the volume that's there, because you got to keep your communication on point. All right. Because that's the biggest thing that matters out there, right? Because as one of my good buddies, he's a shipper who's been a shipper for a very long time, says, he's like, you can have a bad week. Hell, you can have a bad month of service, but you can never have a bad day of communication. So again, when you're out there and you're able to control your controllables, and again, could I make more money if I played the spot market on everything? In the short term, yes, undoubtedly, I could go through and I could probably increase my profit for my brokerage out there. But long term, because again, this isn't like a joke to me, I take this shit very seriously. I love this industry to my core. I plan on doing this for a very, very long time. And I want to have carriers that see the value in working with us. I want to be a broker of choice to trucking companies. I want trucking companies out there to see my company's name, postings, whatever that is, emails, however you want to put it, and think, I want to work with these guys because they treat us right, they do their job, and they pay us fair. They pay us all of that stuff. I want that. And that's what I'm striving to do and build up there. Because again, you guys, long-term, consistency is going to win. Customers need consistency. Carriers need consistency. And as a broker, you do too. You need to consistently communicate. All right. I would say, and I see posts out there almost every single day. Every single day, I see posts out there on social media about how some broker fucks some carrier over. And I know it's only one side of it, but I recognize the behavior in the post about what happened. And I say that happens probably way more than people think, because I used to do that shit early on in my career. And I've openly spoken about this throughout this entire time that I've had this podcast. I was that shady broker early on in my career, pulling people off for an extra $50 here and there. And then it all blew up in my face, and I changed my ways and I learned. And I've found that the way that I'm operating now is a lot easier for my stress. It's also a lot better. I'm able to provide a lot better product to my customers on that, and that's ultimately what it is, because like I want to build a brand and a company that people are proud to work with, that's out there. And I think that it's a great way to kind of approach and assess these situations. And again, you guys, like, I'm out here to bring you guys the unfiltered truth about building a business, and this talk has since kind of quieted because the market isn't as plentiful as it was. And I saw a clip out there that the market's still recovering from a lot of the digital brokers who were just concerned about revenue to get their next round of funding and everything else. But, I think ultimately everything that's out there, I can't control what any other company does out there. I really can't. I can only control my actions, my effort, the way I conduct myself out there. And that's all I'm ultimately concerned about. Again, I see all the headlines, I see all the posts out there, and I try and just not comment on a bunch of it because it doesn't improve my business at all. And I hope, off of these last 20 minutes or so that we've been live, I hope you guys got value in what I had described out there in the importance of this. And I hope a lot of you look into this as a very viable option for you guys to build a successful book of business up there, because I hope, ultimately everybody can gain from this podcast. Everybody can learn from this podcast, because again, I don't have all the answers, but a lot of my guests are really smart. I think I know a thing or two about the industry, and I just want to put best practices out there for, not if you find yourself in these situations, but ultimately when you find yourself in one of these scenarios, you know what to do. You know how to deliver that value to your customers, because I'm not naive to think that I'm the only freight broker out there that deserves to make anything. I believe in, responsible capitalism. Ultimately, you guys, I think the pie is big enough for us all to be successful in the market. And I think that it's our duty to put best practices out there for others. And I hope that you guys were able to get some value out there. Corey Buchan, what is up, man, over on YouTube? He says, a lot of my loads are all spot market, hoping to get away from that soon. Dude, that's where we all start though, Corey. Like, ultimately, that's where we all start. We're primarily in a lot. I would say 90% of our freight is spot market freight, man. I have one RFP customer that we have published rates with, but everybody else is a spot market, truck in hand style quotes and stuff like that. And honestly, Corey, I don't see that changing, right? Like, I know that there's a bunch of talk out there about the market and it's improving. I don't think 2025 is going to look very different than how 2024 looks. I think that there is a major imbalance out there of Corey says, been doing that now for 10 years, 3 by myself. Yeah, man. It's, I personally think 2025 will ultimately look very close to 2024. I think rates are going to go up a little bit. I think it's only inevitable, and that's just based on basic, simple Econ 101. And if you study the freight markets as a whole over the last, whatever years, they generally land in that 18 to 24 month mark, and we're all at that 24 months now. But again, like I've been saying for a while, I do not see a cataclysmic rise outside of a massive black swan event, which I don't want to happen. I don't think anybody wants to relive 2020, 2021 ever again. But outside of that, I think it's going to be a gradual increase. And I think that ultimately it's going to come at the event of people leaving the market. I think that there isn't just an oversupply that's out there. And I just saw, and I won't break down this article, but it talks, the TT News put an article out that I read this morning about truck driver pay drops 7.4% that's out there. And there is, they pretty much, I'll summarize the article. There's too many drivers out there, and that's including company drivers and owner operators, is what they said in this article. They just don't need drivers right now, and they do not have the freight to sustain them, the overall freight volume that's out there. So, that article it's very telling, right? You guys, it's, supply and demand. That is in its simplest forms, supply and demand is the easiest way to kind of track what's going on out there. All right. And if there is an oversupply of options, it's going to have, and then in a free market society, which I am a massive fan of, is the open market and the free market. It's going to drive prices in one direction until that balancing act inevitably hits its bottom, and then it starts to recover at that time. But again, back to the ebbs and flow aspect of it, And I thought that what was happening up in Canada might tip things into from a volume perspective, because with the Canadian rail situation that was going on, and I say was because the Canadian Rail Union filed a suit for a back to work order, and trains will keep moving out there in arbitration. This article came out Friday afternoon, and I just wanted to bring that up. I thought that might be kind of a tipping point, because inevitably, if all the rail volume, and here was my theory, if all the rail volume in Canada stopped and it had to transition over to trucks, there would be a decrease in Canadian trucks in the United States to take any of those loads, obviously up into Canada. And I think people would shift their purchasing or their freight at that time, and they would have to think of alternatives. And I thought that might be kind of a wrench thrown into things that might change things up, and might create some form of increase in freight supply that was out there. But with that happening and coming out, that's off the table now. Freight's going to continue to move as it was. So again, I don't see a freight recovery happening in a very large measurable situation. I think rates are going to go up. I do, but I do not see a major improvement in the next 12 months. And especially now, here's what I will say. My opinion will change on this after Q4. All right. Because if we have a true Q4, and all of you long-term freight people know what I mean, a true Q4 for the holidays, if we have a true Q4, my opinion might be swayed and change in early 2025. But I think what you're seeing right now is how it's going to look. I truly do. And again, control your controllables. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm rocking out all my cold calls for the day. I'm getting on the phone. I'm trying to set up site visits, trying to introduce myself to as many people as possible that's out there. And I think every single one of you should do the same. Control your controllables. And then again, I just had my guy Sean with Denim on Friday. If you're a business owner out there, you might need to start looking at your financial partners. You might need to start looking into those situations to prepare yourself for this. Because again, nobody knows, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen. It's all an educated guess, and everything that I just said is an educated guess. Like, I hope it improves, right? Like, I'm self-employed, you guys. I hope it improves because I got a business to build. I got things that I plan on doing here. But the reality is what it is, you guys. And you got to get out there and you got to control your controllables. But that is going to be it today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if I haven't said this enough, I'm going to say it again. I fucking appreciate each and every one of you who come in and tune into this show every single day, every single month. It's crazy to see the growth of all of this over the years and how this all just started in my bedroom 4 years ago as a way to kind of just get out there and try and figure out my passion. And I'm truly doing that, you guys. I'm living that every single day because of each and every one of you. I just want to help people ultimately when it boils down to it. Again, I don't know everything, but I know enough to try and give back to the people that I can. And my guests who come on the show, same thing. They're some of the smartest people I know, and they all want to have. They're all aligned. They just want to help ultimately, and that's what I want to do and continue to do out there. But as always, if you guys got value and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show. Even better, if you feel extra ambitious, rank the show on iTunes or Spotify, you guys. That really helps get the brand out there. The more we can get out there through rankings, the better off everyone will be. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.